Daniel Ricciardo has hit back at Red Bull after seeing Lawson promoted. The man feels backstabbed by the team, but is that the truth? Hasn't he just underperformed in recent times? And why is that Red Bull's mistake? So, Red Bull choosing to promote Liam Lawson over Sergio Perez ends a long contract dispute. But it makes fans wonder about some of its earlier choices. That is, trying to rebuild Daniel Ricciardo's career at RB, which used to hurt Lawson in the short term. And now, all of the sudden Lawson is the one getting promoted above Yuki Tsunoda. But wouldn't Lawson have a better start at Red Bull if he had the whole season at VCarb instead of just 6 races this year and 5 last year? So, what's going on at Red Bull? And why is Ricciardo, out of all people, getting pissed about it? Everyone agrees that the story is way too long and ends with a conclusion that any team taking a somewhat normal approach to the driver market would have seen coming. After Lewis Hamilton took Carlos Sainz's Ferrari seat, Sainz found himself suddenly free for 2025. They didn't want Sainz to join the Red Bull team because they were afraid that bad feelings from when Verstappen and Sainz were Toro Rosso teammates would come up again. Early in the season, Perez was doing his job as number 2, so Christian Horner chose to extend his deal early to avoid any form drops like the ones he had in 2023. No, that didn't work. Instead, Perez's slide was even worse. Red Bull brought Daniel Ricciardo back to F1 as a possible plug-and-play replacement for Perez if he got worse again. However, Ricciardo was not in good shape, and Yuki Tsunoda beat him heavily when they were teammates. Perez's form kept getting worse, to the point where Red Bull considered getting someone else before the summer break. It was said that Liam Lawson hadn't quite found the speed that was needed, so he was asked to test the Red Bull. At that point, Lawson clearly wasn't fast enough, as Perez was kept on for the rest of 2024, but he kept being bad everywhere except Baku. After Singapore, Ricciardo was taken out of the race, and Lawson took his place. Tsunoda beat the Kiwi semi-rookie in points scored and in qualifying, but Horner doesn't really like him due to his connection with the departing Honda partner. So, they had to decide whether to keep Perez and the who knows how many millions of dollars he brings in from Mexican funding, making him a pay driver, or let Perez go and bring Lawson in. The second choice was chosen, however it wasn't that simple. You may or may not agree with Lawson's decision to join Red Bull, but there are some clear things that he brings to the team: stability, toughness on the track, and a fast race pace. He'll win races if the car is good and the circumstances are right, but his main job is to help Verstappen defend his title in 2025. The only thing that will matter is closing the gap between Verstappen and Perez that they had near the end of their time together. But Red Bull's choice to hire Lawson brings up an important question. Why wasn't he thought good enough for a spot at RB a year ago, or even 5 months ago during the summer break, if he's now good enough to move up to the senior team? AlphaTauri announced its plan to change its name to RB, and named its drivers for 2024 at a time, when Ricciardo was out with a broken hand from his Zandvoort FP2 crash. It also happened at a time when Lawson was driving the AlphaTauri and looked like a good fit, especially after finishing 9th at the Singapore Grand Prix. Lawson looked more on it than Ricciardo from the start of his 5 races with the Italian team. It wasn't a big surprise that Ricciardo and Tsunoda were chosen to be RB's lineup for 2024, but many people thought Lawson should have had a full season, which is why picking Lawson makes the Ricciardo experiment look even stranger. What was the point? Based on the idea that he was the only driver who could really keep up with Verstappen while they were teammates, the team spent a year trying to get back together with him. Red Bull thought that if they could get Ricciardo back to the level of performance he had before joining McLaren, they could replace Perez and not have to deal with his form changing all over the season. In a very technical sport, Red Bull's choice to hire Ricciardo seemed to be based only on kindness, with a bright rose-tinted view of the past. It's more likely that Ricciardo was done with Formula 1, or at least needed all of 2023 to get back on track, not just 6 months. Replacing Nyck de Vries in the AlphaTauri for the Hungarian Grand Prix in 2023 without any testing put him back in a position he had gotten away from with McLaren: uncomfortable, foreign, and not well prepared. Of course he did what he could. Ricciardo is the kind of guy who can grin and bear it when things go wrong, but this wasn't the best way to prepare. The temptation of a return to Red Bull F1 may have been too strong, but the carrot at the end of the stick always seemed too far away. Those who aren't good enough are quickly kicked out, unless the driver has a history of good runs. This was good for both Ricciardo and Perez. In a 2023 test at Silverstone, Ricciardo drove the RB19 for Red Bull as part of his third job as a driver for the team. The claim was that the 8-time Grand Prix winner had done a lap fast enough to start in the first row of that year's race. This idea was used in an episode of Drive to Survive to make the story seem more exciting. Is Red Bull, a championship-winning F1 team, so devoted to tradition that it would choose to ignore the changes in tyre conditions and track conditions? It's possible that they really wanted to get rid of De Vries, or thought they could rehabilitate Ricciardo. It shows that Red Bull's system for managing drivers is more complicated than it seems. People who aren't good enough are quickly thrown out, unless the driver has a history of good runs. Both Ricciardo and Perez got credit for this, so the team kept both drivers for way too long while they tried to find a performance source that had long since dried up. There were 2 times when the well ran dry, but both Christian Horner and Helmut Marko stared at it in the hopes that the water would come back. For a team that is known for not caring about other people, emotion has gotten the best of them. They missed out on the driver market because they can't see past themselves. There's a chance that Lawson is not the best driver for the team. Only his success will show. There were times when the team should have let go of its biases and pushed Tsunoda, but it spent too much time on Ricciardo and Perez, and not enough time on the Japanese driver. In any case, its earlier experiment with Ricciardo now looks like a waste of time. It killed off the Australian's F1 future while trying to save it. And at the same time, it ruined Ricciardo's career, which caused him to become sour at the team that once provided him with the best material he had during his career. And now, after being fired by VCARB with 6 races left in the 2024 season, Daniel Ricciardo hasn't raced in F1. It looks like he's now ready to end his career, all thanks to Red Bull. The Australian has put an end to rumours that he might be going back to Formula 1 in an online conversation that went viral. Even though he hasn't had a car since VCARB dropped him before the end of the 2024 season, he was thought to be Cadillac's top pick for their first race under General Motors in 2026. However, any plans for Ricciardo to join the American team were quickly shelved. Reports say the experienced driver thinks his F1 career is over after failing to secure a race-winning spot at Red Bull. In the video that has been shared a lot, Ricciardo meets the fan, and the fan asks, "No Cadillac?" The always smiling Aussie replies right away, "Nah, I'm done." After VCARB, there were rumours that Ricciardo could stay with Red Bull as a driver, but those ties don't seem to be there anymore, making it unclear what he will do next after he retires. In more than 250 races, Ricciardo has won 8 Grand Prix and finished on the podium 32 times. His best years were with Red Bull, where he finished 3rd in the Drivers' Championship twice, in 2014 and 2016. But his worst years will also be remembered to be linked to Red Bull. So, what do you think? Have Red Bull ruined Ricciardo's chances at a decent ending to his career? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.